I get that some people don't like these skirmish cav and light cav heavy builds, although I'm here to tell you it pretty much has been meta since Warhammer 1, and there's a bunch of reasons why. This is a topic I've talked about a bunch on my channel over the long course of Total War Warhammer's history, but it is worth touching on again, especially in a new context. Today, I've got this replay from Cool Umbrella. He's taken Slaanesh up against Warriors of Chaos, and that, of course, means lots of light cavalry. Specifically, we've got 4 Hellstriders and 4 Marauder Horsemen on both sides, more or less. Of course, the Undivided will be bringing some Horse Masters, of course, along with it, and just a greater volume of skirmish cavalry, but the obligatory 4 Hellstriders. They both got powerful, fast, hard-hitting single entities alongside this massive light cavalry force, and that kind of starts to show why these light cavalry tend to dominate in land battles, even in domination to a degree as well. The rest of the build here, we've got some devoted marauders, hell scourges, and some spears on the flanks. Nikari, of course, in the center, some seekers, and then Be'lakor coming in heavy with some chaos knights on the far flank. A couple of poison warhounds scattered around as well, so it's all mobility for the Warriors of Chaos. A little bit risky, but one thing, so getting to skirmish cavalry and light cavalry in general. So skirmishers tend to be very good. Everyone should know that in Total War Warhammer, right? If you can shoot your opponent, not have to fight them in melee, it's potentially a lot less risky. That being said, skirmishers are very tough to protect in multiplayer, especially stationary, kind of infantry skirmishers, artillery, those types of non-mobile missile units are very tough to protect, especially against factions that can take a lot of good, hard-hitting, fast attack units. Certainly Warriors of Chaos have long fell into that camp with Shaggoths and Warhounds and Marauder Horsemen. Slaanesh, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of their given playstyle, right? They should be very good at that playstyle, getting on top of your ranged units, running you down very quickly. They should be the fastest faction in the game, and they definitely are. That being said, Missile Cavalry retains the mobility and still has the ability to provide some missile damage while also potentially being able to stay safe, or certainly have a greater chance of staying safe. We get a huge pitched engagement between Hellstriders, just some nice Hellstrider on Hellstrider violence here. Definitely is approved by everyone. They did nerf Hellstriders, increase their cost ever so slightly, but definitely not enough, and I do think they need to increase the price of Marauder Horsemen. Not that I think that this, skirmish cav meta that has existed pretty much forever in land battles is necessarily inherently good or bad. Personally, I'm a big fan of units like Pistoliers and other skirmish cavalry, and I do enjoy playing mobile playstyles, so I guess maybe I'm inherently biased towards this type of game a little bit. But all over the field here, we can see the Hellstriders doing a good job for the Warriors, generally winning out against the Slaaneshi Hellstriders, although certainly the Seekers and Nikari staying very safe for the time being. Got some nice counter-skirmish with the Marauder Horsemen of Slaanesh. They are a bit more expensive, but they've got some physical resistance. Help shrug off a little bit of the damage of the Horse Masters in the counter-skirmish. The magic javelins also, if there are any left in the late game, can help quite a bit against Be'lakor, who himself compares, interestingly, to Nikari. Nikari definitely has less HP overall. Pretty much the same in terms of combat prowess, though, in terms of, weapon strength, attack, defense, so on. Be'lakor's armor and flying does give him a little bit of an advantage, but Nikari is just straight up faster, even if Be'lakor is in the air, so something to consider there. But right now, Cool Umbrella kind of having to circle up the horses a little bit, and the Hellstriders take a kind of position here with his Marauder Horseman, try and just catch whatever isolated units he can, which he's doing a good job of. Seekers get a hold of Chaos Knights, and this is pretty much a nightmare matchup for them as they try and pull away. They didn't get a good engagement initially on the Seekers, and the Seekers much smaller, more lithe and nimble, and of course with that ridiculous armor-piercing damage, will be able to put a huge hurt. Not to mention they have Strider as well, which means as they fight through the woods, they will not get debuffed. They won't have to run around the trees. They'll be able to phase through them and whatnot, and that will result in them winning pretty decisively. But some great micro here to pull them away. And one of the reasons that I really don't mind, personally, the skirmish cav meta, sort of as it exists, is that light cavalry does require quite a bit of micro kind of by default. I mean, certainly if you can protect infantry skirmishers, they are a great option for counter skirmishing. They're almost always going to have higher DPS overall than skirmish cavalry, so you can just straight up outshoot them for better value most often. But here, Be'lakor gets a great engagement there. Phantasmagoria, Willing Prey, Shadow Shroud popped in response. The Seekers also get in here. Nice little surround. They're going to get countercharged by Hellstriders, and the Chaos Knights are coming in looking to perhaps sandwich those Seekers and run them down. But yeah, we got the big force for the Undivided flanking here as well. Maybe a little bit late coming in. Could have perhaps cleaned up some of those Marauder Horsemen and other units earlier, but sticking close to the Spear and Hellscourge support is definitely smart. Infantry can play a role. I'm not trying to sit here and say that infantry is completely useless. Certainly infantry is quite good, and even as a kind of the main component of your army, will work for certain factions and certain matchups, but this, you know, emphasis on skirmish cavalry is definitely one that, especially in certain matchups, is very real. But Be'lakor is going to drop down once more for a duel here with N'Kari, and it should go pretty well. Honestly, it's hard to say. We do see some fascination there to enrage Be'lakor, make sure he can't cycle charge from the air. Looks like we're perhaps going to see another Phantasmagoria to lock him in place, make sure he can't escape. The Slaanesh Hellstriders collapse as the Undivided Hellstriders and Chaos Knights counter collapse. Spears a little bit late to the party, but they are in a position to support in a meaningful way. This Hellscourge could have probably been run down by everything, but the Warriors player here making a little bit of a mistake and just kind of running around in the back line here with these Hellstriders who definitely need to be helping out in just kind of decisively cleaning up some engagements here, maybe trying to sweep some of those Marauders off the field. While we were looking away, though, Be'lakor had a pretty bad time. He gets debuffs popped on him. N'Kari gets some good RNG, and very quickly, the Dark Prince starts to fall. And we're going to see Desperation Pit of Shades pop there. We'll do some really nice damage. These Marauder Horsemen Masters also should just pull out and throw their javelins in rather than all over blobbing into melee right there. But it's not going to be enough to save Be'lakor. He's taken enough damage at this point that he's suffering from instability. Going to be taking quite a bit of damage from that and disappearing in a big hurry. Yeah, N'Kari calls down a beautiful slicing shards, rips apart a huge number of those Marauder Horsemen. They all almost instantly tear out, and it's looking decent for Slaanesh. Certainly there's quite a bit of Hellstriders and Marauder Horsemen left that will be quite dangerous. Perhaps cycle charge in this late game. A few Chaos Knights hanging around here as well, but with the loss of Be'lakor, they're definitely going to start to have serious leadership issues. N'Kari does have Strider. Yeah, pretty much all Slaanesh mobile units have Strider, which makes fighting on wooded maps really no issue at all. There's a couple of factions, you know, Slaanesh, Wood Elves, Beastmen, that really thrive on maps with a lot of woods especially, but just generally any terrain when it comes to Slaanesh, they have Strider, right, which is better than just Woodsmen, although certainly quite a few units on Wood Elves and Beastmen just have Strider straight up, I believe. Anyway, getting a little distracted from the point of this particular video. Marauder Horsemen going to try and use up the last of their ammunition here, shooting N'Kari. They've kind of just been left on fire at will for a lot of the game, which is not necessarily a mistake in and of itself, you know, just dealing the damage over time, but not having any javelins left in this late game is definitely going to be quite painful, as N'Kari is still rocking over 2,000 HP and is actually healing a little bit from the Harvester of Souls. Very interesting. I guess I thought this was only when a unit was fully wiped out, but somehow it managed to proc itself there. I guess, did N'Kari fully wipe out a unit? Not really sure. Definitely would have gotten some healing, at least from when he killed Be'lakor. But Phantasmagoria, a little bit of a long cast time, whereas Chaos player able to avoid that for the most part, not get any of their units caught up in it. But we'll fast forward a little bit as the Undivided forces make their final charge. N'Kari staying smart, fighting in the woods. Certainly here, like I said, the Hellstriders obviously have Strider, it's in the name, but the Marauder Horsemen certainly do not, and they will be suffering some debuffs from the woods as they fight here. Slaanesh infantry and everything else will not. So let's soak up some final cinematics in the shadows of the trees here. In the Altdorf outskirts as N'Kari finishes off these Undivided fools, to be honest. Clearly, they were not prepared for what N'Kari is going to bring. Flashes of light and pink and whatnot going off in the woods. Absolutely beautiful ballet of blissful violence. And there it is. Slaanesh takes home the win. And quite a bit of value, no doubt, for N'Kari. Yeah, almost 4,000 damage value. Very, very good stuff. N'Kari can be quite vulnerable to overwhelming missile fire and just generally to getting sniped, but in a situation like this, where you can pretty much guarantee that you'll be able to screen your opponent's mobility through superior light cavalry, Slaanesh is basically like Warriors of Chaos, but instead of, you know, only being able to take 4 Hellstriders, you can take, you know, more, and you can take as many Slaanesh horsemen as you want, and you're playing Slaanesh, so you can take all the very strong Slaanesh units. And as a result here, it ends up being quite close, must be said. A little bit of different RNG, perhaps, in Be'lakor versus N'Kari could have turned that around, but certainly N'Kari is a potent enough combatant to take down Be'lakor. I know some people think that Be'lakor is, like, completely ridiculously insane. He's very strong, don't get me wrong. If you have the tools to kill him, he's actually not terribly hard to deal with. But anyway, rest of the units here, Hellstriders definitely need more of a cost increase up to probably 700, or they need a stat nerf, one or the other. Maybe nerf their passive ability that they get charged up by. Was it units with low leadership? I forget exactly what it is. Anyway, the Slaanesh Horsemen also, they do okay. I mean, for Slaanesh here, N'Kari ends up having to carry quite a bit of the value, which is fine. For Warriors of Chaos, the value certainly is more distributed out to the units, as Be'lakor didn't do as much heavy lifting himself. It was more done by the Horse Masters and such. Of course, that's the benefit of taking Warriors over Slaanesh, is that you can actually take more Skirmish Cavalry, and you can still take the Hellstriders. But yeah, very interesting game. Maybe not the most exciting for some people, but certainly for somebody like me, I do enjoy watching the Cavalry Micro. And yeah, just how people manage to get on with this being the situation. You know, both these builds are very strong. Are they necessarily meta? I don't know. I'm not probably the person to make that judgment. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Hopefully you enjoy this. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.